The Retirement Cafe podcast, the 9 accelerators for a successful retirement, staying on track. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast with me, your host, Justin King. If you're thinking about your retirement or already retired, you're in the right place. My aim is to help you plan for and live a successful and meaningful retirement. Retirement is far more than just a financial event. It's a significant life event, a major transition, which will bring with it new challenges and opportunities. So each episode contains tips, information, and inspiration to help you feel more informed and confident about your retirement. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hello and welcome to my podcast. It's great to have you here. This week we return for the final time to our series on the 9 accelerators for a successful retirement. This is the 9th out of 9 episodes, and Kathy and I are going to be talking about how to stay on track. If you've missed the first 8 episodes, don't worry, just head to the show notes, or you can go to our website, theretirementcafe.co.uk, or where you can get your podcast to find links directly to each one of the 9 accelerators. As a brief reminder, the 9 accelerators of a successful retirement form the framework that we use in my retirement planning business, MFP Wealth Management, here in Christchurch in Dorset. They help my team to be sure we're addressing all the areas of planning that allow you to retire with confidence, clarity, and choice about how to spend your retirement. We call this framework our Retirement Success Programme. As always with episodes in this series, my wife and co-director Kathy sits in the interview seat to make this more of a two-way conversation and to help explain the importance of this final accelerator, staying on track. Welcome back, Kathy.
Hello, good to be back. Good to be back. And I can't believe this is the 9th episode in this series. And we are talking about staying on track. So let's start with the obvious question. What do you mean by staying on track?
Well, making sure that retirement plans we help put in place for clients remain relevant and up to date. So that's kind of in a nutshell, what we're talking about, staying on track.
Great. So, obviously, we do a huge amount of work helping put those plans in place in the first place. So why might somebody then need help to stay on track?
Well, let me ask you a question for a second, because then I think it'll help put some context around this. How comfortable are you monitoring changes in regulation and the environment that might impact your own financial plan? On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1, it feels quite overwhelming, to 10 being, I love spending all my time understanding tax and markets, where would you position yourself?
Well, definitely not up at the 10. To be honest, I find it really quite overwhelming. I don't really know where to start to look and what to read and what not to read. So I'd probably be down at that bottom end of a 2, maybe something like that.
Yeah. Well, I think also possibly, being married to me, you kind of defer some of that decision-making process. And that, that's not unusual also in most couples that we deal with. There's one person who's kind of keener on looking at the money aspects, and there's one person in a partnership or in a couple that isn't so interested, but just wants the reassurance that they are on track. And the reason people have trouble often staying on track is that unless you do answer 10 to that question and genuinely love keeping on top of all the changes to financial rules, it can become paralyzing or just too much for you. The thing is, the tax rules continually change and life brings unexpected events. Investment returns are unknown, inflation rates are unknown. I mean, the reality is, of course, the world is a continually moving thing. Since the Big Bang, we've kind of continued to the environment has continually changed, and of course, it will continue to do so. Now, humans, of course, like comfort in things staying the same, but of course nothing ever does. So to stay the course, I suppose you've got to be very aware of everything that is going on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. So getting down to then what people need to do to make sure that they stay on track, or maybe also what you do as their financial planner to help people stay on track. Where do people start?
Well, of course, we've created with everyone we work with, we've created a strategy that, an initial plan, when's the retirement date? What level of income do we need to withdraw? What do we think the expenditure is going to be? What's important in your retirement? What do we want to make sure that we get it within a plan? And then we need to regularly review that strategy hopefully with our expertise and insight, so that I'm often bringing questions or consideration to someone's plan, really around questions that they may not have thought of themselves. And that's because, of course, that's all I'm doing. I'm doing retirement planning all the time. And whereas for any one of our clients, often it's the first time they've retired, maybe the only time they're going to retire. And therefore, they're looking for that kind of guidance, expertise, insight into what's going on. And of course, as these changes happen in life, in health, in the world, in economics, in tax, etc., we've got to then discuss and interpret that information and what it means to their financial plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that, sorry to interrupt, but one of the things that you often say, I hear you say to clients is that once you've built a plan, you say, one thing I know for certain is that it's not going to be correct.
Yeah. And in fact, if we just think about what goes on currently, it's what are we at? We're recording this on the 23rd of September, so we've had lots of tax changes today, lots of tax loosening on the from the UK government, and of course, if you think about all the forecasts that we've had, will Putin invade Ukraine? Will he not? Thousands of words were written. Then he did. And then, it's all going to be over in a few weeks, and then it wasn't. And everyone's always making all these forecasts, and inflation is going to be this, interest rate's going to be that. And I kind of go, there's so many words written there, and they're all our assumptions. And somehow we've got to kind of guide people through this morass of information coming through to them and kind of go, okay, so what do we really need to focus on, and what do we not, or what can't we can control? So the only way for us to really do that once we've built the plan is to continually look at it and have a regular progress meeting to review what someone's life priorities are and update their cash flow, their lifetime financial plan to reflect these changes.
So tell me more about the lifetime cash flow, lifetime financial plan. I know it was our second accelerator, I think. So obviously you go into it in a bit more detail, but just recap really briefly on what a lifetime cash flow or financial plan actually is.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's probably one of the things that really does make the backbone of someone's retirement plan. So what we're going to do is we're going to take everyone's assets. So all the kind of maybe the pension savings they've saved, them ISAs, maybe they've buy-to-lets, maybe they've got inheritances in the future, maybe they've got gifts they want to give away, they've got holiday homes. There's a huge amount of things going on, and we've got to try and build a plan. So what are all the incomes, what are all the outgoings, and what are the assumptions that we're going to make within that plan? What are the assumptions, inflation, assumptions on returns, and of course one of the key things is assumptions on our longevity. How long are we going to live?
Absolutely. And, you were saying, updating it is really important. And I think you also mentioned, we've had some recent announcements, haven't we, made today? And I mean, you would not have yesterday been forecasting that the health and social care levy that was just introduced 6 or 8 months ago by Boris and, Rishi Sunak would be scrapped when the new Chancellor and the new Prime Minister came in. So presumably that's an example of an assumption that is made at one point in time that would need to be reassessed at the next review.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you can only work on what you know. I mean, it's pointless starting to put into forecasts what you don't know. And therefore, this is why we've got to make sure they don't get wedded to the plan, and it becomes flexible, and it allows alterations as we're going along. And maybe we've got to, have some kind of broad brush strokes to say, okay, so what do we expect tax rates to be? What do we expect inflation to be? What do we expect interest rates to be? And then, of course, we actually get what are the actual investment returns that we've received, so that we can get closer to that line, what we forecast, and go back and say, okay, well, 3 years ago we forecast, in our plan that we were going to get a 4% annualized return from our equity investments. What did we actually receive? And therefore, do we need to make changes on our going forward assumptions? So there's a lot to bring to the table in these forward planning meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously that's the financial side of things, but things change in people's lives as well, don't they? I mean, what about, with regards to helping people stay on track with their financial planning? If something drastically changed in their lives, what then?
Well, I think sometimes lots of conversations I've been having recently are about what's important to people. There's only one guarantee, I think, is we can always, if you're 75, you still wish that you were 65. And the reason you do that, and if you were 55, you still rather be, 45 today than 55. I think for most people, if they could have another 10 years of vitality in front of them, then they'd take it. And therefore, there's a number of things we've got to make sure we get into their lives, the things that are important to them. I often say that, the only guarantee that we've got is our vitality is dripping away. And it does it very, very slowly. We're hopefully we're fit and healthy, but at some point we may not be. And therefore, what do we need to make sure we get into someone's lives? And then, of course, going on the planning front is, are we in the right property? Are we in the right place that we want to spend the rest of our life? Is it the right time to be thinking about where we'll move to? So many clients recently have... more elderly clients have had to kind of change the way they're living because they've had falls with a hip or problems, etc. And then working out, is this the right home for you to spend the last few years of your life in? Is it the right community? Is it is it around the right shops? There's so many things to consider, and just having someone that they can have a discussion about this as they move forward and working with their family, maybe to bring that all into a plan. Just having that conversation, I think clients find very, very useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, coming out of those conversations are changes that you have to make to the financial plan, because it might be a case of downsizing or right sizing or changing home or what have you. And that has an impact as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And, obviously, I know from the work that you do, you spend a lot of time at the beginning of the process. We first work with new clients and helping them establish what is important and what they want their retirement to look like, which is, again, the foundation of the financial plan, isn't it? It's what the financial plan is built upon. But I know also that each of those kind of annual or 6-monthly regular progress meetings, you are revisiting that with them. Revisiting, how's it all going? So why do you find it's important to check in with people on that as well? Do people just not do what they say they're going to do, or what happens there?
Well, I suppose there's a number of factors, isn't there? There's the things that we say we're going to do and getting round to it. And then, of course, for some people, health gets in the way. And then that has a big impact on their lives as well. We're working with a couple at the moment who, one of the partnership is got a very short life expectancy in front of them, and it's getting everything in order to make sure. Now they hadn't planned on this to happen. they hadn't, they probably thought they'd got another good 10 years together of their retirement. But now all of a sudden they've got to, the lady of the house is going to be on her own. And that's known. We just absolutely know that. The doctors have said, no, this is terminal. This is, if you're here in 6 months, that'll be an amazing thing. So, expect the next 3 months to meet your maker. Well, these are big conversations, and of course, again, a plan. How are we going to deal with it? Is it the right home? Where the finances in order? Are we ready for this inevitable event? So there's some deep conversations, and then of course, has everything been done? Has every conversation that needed to be had for someone who's reaching their mortality, are the things that they need to be attended to? And that might be outside financial scenarios. That might be, very personal or altruistic wants and needs.
Absolutely. I mean, that's such an important conversation. There's such important conversations to have, aren't they, in those much latter stages of life. But even for people who fortunately aren't yet in that position, but you've had a conversation with them earlier on in working together, and they said, "Yeah, I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to go and do that." And they come back the next year, and you say, "So, how's that gone?" And the answer is, "Oh, well, I haven't actually really made much progress with this thing that was really important. I told you was really important to me." Why is that? What can you do to kind of, I suppose, help people get moving again?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just reconnecting. I think, we've all got the knowledge mostly of what we need to do in our lives. So if we are, I don't know, ask anyone who wants to lose weight about whether they've got the knowledge about how to lose weight. They're experts in it. In fact, I know at one point that you had trouble sleeping. I mean, how much of an expert are you now at sleeping? Not at sleeping, but around sleeping. Because
I feel I've read quite a lot about it.
Absolutely, because of course this is what we do. We're human beings, and we try and provide solutions to our problems. Now, the key is, of course, is that when something's important to us, and of course something like sleeping is massively important, but when something's important or having an impact on us significantly, we try and do something about it. But just having the information doesn't always allow us to kind of follow through. Again, coming back to the diet scenario, you ask anyone who wants to lose weight what they need to do, and they'll tell you. They'll have all the expertise because they've read a million books, they've tried a million diets, they know they should exercise more, they know they should consume less calories. As we know, it's as simple as that. But just because something's simple doesn't make it easy. And therefore, if I've got a dream of, I don't know, sailing across some oceans or helping a community elsewhere, or I don't know what it may be, whatever's important to somebody, the energy's got to be there, and it's got to feel achievable, and we've got to be able to dedicate the time to it and the resources to it. So actually just helping people reconnect with, we do know we have a shortening of time in our lives. We've all got a shortening of time. So let's have a conversation around that and go, how urgent and how important would this be? I find it helpful for people to kind of reconnect with what's important to them, and rekindle that kind of energy, and also to ask them, what could possibly get in the way, and then try and work through those things that do get in the way to help them achieve what they want to.
Absolutely. And I think just facilitating that conversation, isn't it? It's helping people think through the barriers and the road blockages and the things that they're finding they can't get around. And actually sometimes facilitating a conversation frees someone up to go ahead and do it. So, excellent. Great. Okay.
Sorry, my last point there is, for some people they'll be doing this on their own, and for some people they'll be working with somebody who can be helping them. And I think with everyone, it's always useful to have a meaningful conversation, and it's also great to have a meaningful conversation with someone who actually supports you in your dream, because there's there's an awful lot of detractors in the world. There's an awful lot of people who'll tell you something that, oh, why are you doing that? That sounds daft, and actually it may be important to you. And my view is that here as planners, we're here to support people in whatever their dream is, or whatever, it doesn't have to be some big dream, or just whatever their goal is, whatever's important to them, we're here to support them in achieving that. And I think that's a pretty useful thing. And people haven't often got someone to really support them in whatever it is that they're what I call, that dream of freedom, that to help them achieve what's important to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think just one final question around that kind of staying on track part of the 9 accelerators for successful retirements. I know there's evidence out there that investors who work with a financial advisor have on average a 4% better return on their investments than those who go it alone. So I think there's something around behavioural aspects, isn't there? Investor behavioural aspects, which maybe you could touch upon, because I think that's also part of helping people stay on track, isn't it, with their plans?
Yeah, it is. And I don't know about the 4% better return. I kind of always view it as a point of, can I make sure that the clients get a return that they probably wouldn't have got on their own? Now, of course, people could be brilliantly expert at choosing the right investment products and understanding all the tax and, getting their plan in order. And I'm sure there are people who are able to do that. I do think, though, there appears, if you watch the inflows into the stock market and the outflows into the stock market, and there are statistics that are provided to me as a professional advisor about the inflows into different funds, into different kind of asset classes, whether it's bonds, whether it's commodities, whether it's equities, whether it's properties, and I can see the flow of money, and it is a bit nuts that. The right time to be buying equities or buying things, buying companies, well-run companies of the world, of course, is when those companies are on sale. So I think I'm right in saying this year the S&P 500 has fallen since its high of around in the beginning of the year by about 20%. So that means you can go and the companies of the large companies of the world, or quoted in the S&P 500, which is many, many companies that you will know and buy products from. The price of their shares today are 20% less than they were at the beginning of the year. Well, that's pretty significant. That's kind of buying on sale. And one of the reasons, of course, they are low is there's been lots of people selling their shares, and the value of those shares, the value of them has come down because the market itself is thinking that their profits are going to be less. Well, again, humans, I mean, if you go to the supermarket and there's something that you buy regularly is on a 20% sale, then often we'll be compelled to buy it. If you could suddenly walk into the car garage, if you could get a car at the moment, but if you could walk into the car garage and get the BMW that you desired for 20% discount, you'd kind of bite the hand off if you were going to be buying it anyway. So on the basis that, I suppose, what happens, though, of course, is that we become a bit fearful and we become a bit scared because there's a lot of bad news. And if we consume the media, which is always out there shouting at us to say, the world is going to the hell in the handcart, that we will run away from things that we presume to be risky. Well, actually, I would suggest over a 30-year retirement, that equities are exactly the place that you want to be. And if you have an opportunity to be buying them at a 20% discount, then, fill your wheelbarrow full of them. Obviously, this needs to go into the plan. And it needs to be, you need the right level of cash and the right level of kind of guaranteed income and the right level of equities, which can be invested over the long term. And this is kind of molding it all together, coming back into that staying on track and being in the plan. So I think the reason that 4% number is kind of bounded around of people getting a better return, I think it's just a better outcome. And the outcome is more about yes, a good return because you can guide people into long-term investors that they can hold even when the markets temporarily decline. But also that you can kind of build that strategy that meets someone's kind of goals, short term, medium term, and long term, and actually align their plan into exactly what is important to them. And therefore, if someone does get worried and they phone up their advisor, I mean, we rarely have a call because we think we do it pretty thoroughly. So even when the market declined by 30% when COVID hit. Temporarily, of course, it bounced back very quickly, but we didn't. I don't think we had any calls then. But if we did have any calls, it would be, "Has your plan changed?" No. Okay, so we don't need to change the investment strategy then, because the investment strategy was built to meet your plan. And if your plan hasn't changed, then we don't need to change your investment strategy. Got it. Right, no problem. And on we go. Sometimes people's plans change. Right, I'm suddenly going to do this. I'm suddenly going to do that. Great, no problem. Let's have a meeting and let's work out a new strategy, a new plan to meet those goals. So, yeah, I'm not absolutely sure that getting a 4% added return, in kind of pounds and pence, but I'm pretty sure that they get an emotional kind of feeling of like, I've got this on track. I know what's going on, and I've got someone who's watching my back.
Yeah, it's that confidence, isn't it? And I think in those moments of fear, when someone might be inclined to sell some of their investments when the market drops, it's possibly partly that as well. It's that reassurance that, no, it's fine, you stick with your plan. And that's possibly part of that better outcome as well, isn't it?
Yeah, because historically, of course, all the downturns have been temporary. And, advances have been generally permanent, long term, and temporary declines. But, none of us absolutely know what the future is going to give us, but we've got to go look back in history and go, okay, so what would have worked before and so therefore what could work in the future, and putting a plan together for that, for that absolute outcome.
Brilliant. And would there be anything else you'd want to add about kind of staying on track? What to consider? What's important? I
also wouldn't review it too often. I think, I think there's a conversation or an adage that I often I know I've said to you before about, nature doesn't hurry; it just takes its time and it does what it needs to do. And the plants at this time of the year, autumn time, they start shedding their leaves, knowing that winter's coming. They don't know exactly when. They don't know when it's going to turn, and we're starting to get frosts. And they know that the winter will be there, and the animals will do the same, and the ones which hibernate, etc. And they know at some point spring will turn, but they won't give you a date of what's going to happen. And we need to kind of work like that basis. If we're following the markets on a daily basis, we're trying to change our strategy on a week by week basis. I think it's just, do what nature does. It knows there are seasons. It knows that, you ask an oak tree, you look at an oak tree and you think, God, Ben, how did it manage to come from an acorn to this great big wonderful oak tree? Well, it just took its time and it did what nature does. And if we do the same with our investing returns and our own lives, etc., just follow the plan. Do what's needed. The seasons will come and go. The returns will be there, and we don't need to. You don't need to pull up the acorn every 3 weeks and see how it's getting on.
Yes, absolutely. That's not going to help with growth, is it?
No.
Not going to help the tree to grow. Excellent. Great. Thank you.
Pleasure. So, thank you to Kathy for helping me explore the importance of staying on track today. I hope you found our conversation helpful. If you have any questions or anything's popped up for you as you've listened or watched, or if you'd like a second opinion on your own retirement plan, please don't hesitate to get in touch and I'll do my best to answer. You can reach me as usual at hello@theretirementcafe.co.uk. You can find me on Twitter at JustinKingCFP. If you want to listen to any of the other podcasts in this episode, head to the show notes for all the links. And of course, you can find my videos on my YouTube channel, which is Justin King MFP. As always, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. If you have, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast player of choice to help more people like you find us. And of course, you can share this episode with someone who you feel may benefit. It really does help. So until next time, I'm Justin King, helping you feel more informed in your retirement.